Hey everyone, welcome to the Sonically podcast where music creators educate music creators. I'm Elmo, and today we have a very special guest joining us. The first time we met our guest, he was singing his heart out on the hit audition show K-Pop Star 2, where he won third place. Since then, he has been working extensively behind the scenes, songwriting countless K-pop hits for the biggest artists and groups in the game. Some of these groups I'm sure you'll recognize, like NCT, Red Velvet, EXO, Shiny, Super Junior, just to name a few. Now he is starting a new project in the world of music publishing, and we are so honored to have this person here to speak to us about it. His name is Andrew Choi. Please join us in giving this man a big applause because he is here to share his journey um, about his about his journey as a music creator. Welcome, Andrew.
Good to be here, Elmo, and good to see you.
Good to see
Yeah,
you, man. It's been a while,
yeah.
and yeah, for those of you that don't know, Andrew and I have been friends for a really long time because as you know, I've spent a lot of time myself in working in the Korean music industry, and that's how we met. And yeah, I mean, Andrew, like I've known you for such a long time, but yeah, and we've had a lot of like really awesome, in-depth life conversations, and um, it that's kind of like what music does. It just brings people together. But I don't know everything. So hopefully we can dive into some areas that I haven't heard of before. But yeah, I mean, like, just to rewind back to sort of like the beginning of your journey, did you grow up with music in your life?
Um, I think in one way, I grew up with music just like anybody else would. Listening to the radio and stuff. I think everyone's influenced by music in some shape or form. But my mom, she is a singer. Like not a professional singer, but she has an incredible voice, and I know that she sang in church, and you know, she would sing for me, like growing up when I was a little kid. So I got a lot of my musical influence from her.
Hmm. So like around the house, was she was singing and she was playing records and that type of thing? Like, was there a constant atmosphere of music going on?
Oh yeah, she was always playing records. Korean music, American music as well. Um, so yeah, I was always surrounded by you know music that was sort of influenced by her. All the
Mhm.
artists that she liked, all the music that she enjoyed listening to.
Who are some of those artists, if you don't mind?
Uh, I remember hearing Julio Iglesias a lot. She adored him,
Mm.
and she had his vinyl record, and she would play it all the time. Um, as for Korean artists, I don't know if like anyone listening to this would know, but like legendary artists from like back in like the 70s and like the 60s. So you know, someone like Izoni, she's still considered to be one of the
Mhm.
best like vocalists in Korea today.
Mm.
Yeah, so these are some of the music that I listened to growing up.
Cool. And you grew up in the States, right?
Yeah, I moved there when I was 5
Hmm.
from Busan.
From
Mm.
Busan. Cool. Okay, so I guess listening to your mom's music and hearing her sing around the
Mhm.
house definitely played a role on, um, I guess, your influences, and perhaps maybe even um, like played a role in terms of your tastes in music and what you're influenced by. But like, how did you discover the process of creating music after sort of being exposed to all of that?
Mm, process. Um, I just created music any way I thought made sense to me, and that was usually just sitting in front of a piano and playing some simple chords and singing some melodies over it. I really didn't know if what the right way was. I just kind of did what felt natural and felt good, and I think
Mm.
that's pretty much how I started. Yeah, nothing fancy.
Yep. So there was no formal lessons along the way, like piano lessons or playing any instruments. Was it all sort of organically done?
Uh, I took clarinet lessons and like piano lessons for a couple of years, but like I don't think playing those instruments really led me towards songwriting. It wasn't that. It was really the songs on the radio, the artists that I love listening to that inspired me to just try to create.
Hmm. I mean, so if you were to hear a song on the radio, what would be like the first step, like listening and like emulating, like singing along
Hmm.
to those artists,
Yeah.
and then what happens after that? Is it sort of like this next click of like, okay, well now I'm really good at singing these other uh, artist songs that I really
Mm-hmm.
like how does that turn into like, oh, I'm hearing this melody in my head and you know
Mm-hmm.
um, starting to create your own.
Well, I think depending on what your expertise is in songwriting, I think people, producers. Um, I think when they listen to music, they really focus on like the production, and I'm a vocalist, so I listened to artists that I thought sang extremely well, you know, and so yeah, most of my focus was on melody. Um,
Mm,
and when you listen to a particular song, it has a particular color to it, you know, and
hmm.
there's a way that it makes you feel. So when I first started writing music, I leaned towards the melodies that really stuck with me, that I was drawn to, and if it kind of had that same color, that same feeling that it evoked in me, then I felt like I was going in the right direction.
I know you're super humble. One of the things that I think anybody that meets you in person is going to pick up. Um, but I mean, like if you were to just say Google Andrew Choi's songwriting credits, um, I think there's like hundreds and hundreds of credits over the years that have been built up, and there's some people I just meet through the grapevine, and I'll ask them like, "Do you know Andrew?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's one of the most well-respected, prolific songwriters to have ever uh, written for K-pop or J-pop." Um, and I don't know, like um, how you think about that, but like for me, I'm just like, man, this guy has, especially in that space, really arrived, and you are, I mean, to in many's eyes, a renowned songwriter and artist. Um, but I could imagine just like getting to where you are now today, like there were some hardships. Um,
Mhm.
so my next question is, what were some of those hardships in your journey, and how did you overcome them?
I think the greatest hardship was actually getting into the industry. It took me over 15 years, really, and I don't think it would have taken as long if I if I really just pushed myself a little bit harder, there were a lot of setbacks, there were a lot of disappointments, there were a lot of excuses, um, and it got to a point where like I kind of just gave up, and I moved to Korea, and taught English for 2 years. But I I'm fortunate that that itch to write never really went away. So um, after about 2 years of teaching, like I just missed writing, so I decided to just write for myself, really. And that was the first time in a very long time where there was no other agenda but to just write music for the simple enjoyment of it. And so I got lucky. I had a couple of songs that I've written with another aspiring. Well, he was an aspiring producer back then, and we wanted to get our songs properly recorded, so we rented out like a studio. And fortunately, the owner of the studio was very well established in the K-pop industry, and he heard me singing in the booth. He called me out. He said, "Hey, I have a couple of tracks. Would you like to try top lining over them?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And you know, I- for me, I didn't even think of it as sort of like an opportunity. So I wasn't nervous. I really didn't. Yeah, it just didn't. It just felt like you know something that I could try, and I had nothing to lose. And so I took those tracks home. And that very same night, I finished those songs, recorded it. It was very poorly recorded. Like there was no autotune or anything on it. Like we didn't know anything back then. And I was just like, all right. I sent it over. Didn't think much of it. And then like a week later, I was at work and he calls me and he's like, "Hey, one of your songs got cut." And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't really know exactly what that meant either. It's like cut. Like, what do you mean by that exactly? He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be on an album." And so that was my first cut with Shiny.
Mm.
Yeah, and then everything just sort of fell
What
into place after that.
what was the title of the song?
Uh, Beautiful. Yeah.
Mm. Um. So I mean, for you, it was sort of like it probably felt like a long shot,
Hmm.
just going in the booth and just like getting these tracks, recording. Um. I mean, when you found out that your song was cut, not only cut but released um, by this super. I mean, they're still super like a super group to this day, but like back then, I'm sure they were like just monsterly famous, if that is even an
Yeah,
expression.
yeah, they
But
were at their peak during that time.
mhm. So what did that feel like?
It felt surreal. It, yeah. I thought like I thought that he was playing a joke on me or something, or like that it must have been a mistake or something. But like, yeah, it, after a few days, it like it solidified, and I realized that okay, this is for real. Especially after he invited me to the recording session, and I met the members and everything, and yeah, it was one of the, I would say, the best moments of my life, actually.
Hmm. How did that change things for you and like open up doors?
Well, the real opportunity was getting to work closer with that producer guy who owned the studio. Um, he wanted me to sort of um, be part of his team. And so we started writing more and more songs together. And because of his network and his reputation, like, I had a medium to get my songs pitched. So, yeah, I, I give credit where credit is due. Like, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would be where I am today. So,
Awesome. Um, I was wondering if you could explain, because you had mentioned the word top lining. What is that exactly?
top lining is just simply crafting melody. Yeah. Um, these days, when it comes to songwriting, it's sort of like it's specialized in a way, where there is the producer, the track maker, and of course the top liner. So you need at least two of those people in the studio to create a song. Um, yeah, and top lining is what I do, and it's what I feel most comfortable with.
Cool. Now, yeah, thank you for the definition, because I think a lot of people out there who are trying to navigate their way through whatever area of music or music industry that they feel they fit
Mhm.
in the most. Um, and I think in North America, like there's maybe like only a handful of people that, well, now because of BTS and like the global explosion of
Mhm.
K-pop, it has become so huge that there are people that are like, man, how do I do that? Like, how do I get into that? Um, and you've been making K-pop and J-pop for so many years. How would you define what those are exactly, from not only a genre perspective, but like from a difference in making it, uh crafting it, if you will, like as opposed
Mm.
to just like making a singer songwriter folk song or
Mhm.
whatever? Like, what is the difference?
Wow, that's a tough question. From my experience, I think what makes K-pop so different from, especially, music like West Coast music, music in the West, um, is that there's a lot more variations in melody. Um, there's a lot of transitions as well in the production. So just a lot is going on. There's all these new sections, um, as opposed to tracks that loop and melodies that also loop. You see a lot of that in Western music, right? But in Korea, I think, Korean listeners, they want a lot of changes. They want to be surprised uh, many, many times throughout a song, and that's what we try to do. And also, K-pop. It, well, K-pop producers are also really good at fusing genres. I think the type of genres that you wouldn't see mixed together in Western music as well. You know, um, like, I mean, you take anything. Like bossa nova and R&B and and rock. You know, sounds like a weird combination, but I guarantee you, a good K-pop producer will be able to bring those things together and somehow make it work. Um, that's not to say that a lot of producers have tried to fuse genres and it just came out horribly. But that's what I love about K-pop, is that there is a lot of experimentation in terms of that kind of production. And like, yeah, we got to fail in order for us to get better at things. And I think by this time and now, like we've become so proficient at that, that like, yeah, like anything is possible, really. Um, and J-pop music, it's just a lot more of that. I think, crazy variations, crazy chord progressions, right? But also, some of the greatest J-pop music, they do that so well, where you just like you sit there and you're just like, kind of like, what is going on? But at the same time, you appreciate so much the musicianship behind all of it and how everything somehow just ties together into this one cohesive song. It's fascinating, I think.
It really is fascinating, yeah. And it's it's sometimes hard for me to wrap my head around a lot of
Hmm.
it. um but like you said, it's when you can just take a step back and appreciate all of those formations that you mentioned.
Hmm.
Like, it really is, A lot of it is
Yeah, yeah,
genius, and a lot of the guys that are really at the top of their craft from a production standpoint are just like, yeah, I just find them completely
yeah,
insane in a good way.
absolutely.
Um, so how like do you think it was like serendipitous for you to be sort of like placed in that right place in the right time in that studio with that producer to now like you have a career in K-pop and J-pop, um as opposed to, because you were born and raised, or you were raised in the
Mhm.
States. um yeah, do you think like things would have been the same for you if you were to have done music in the States?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't think it would have been the same. I might have just um, given up on music and just moved on to something else. Um, yeah, I think, like I said, it was just a streak of good luck. Everything just sort of lining up. Uh, Me going to Korea was really because I just didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I did the whole band thing for a number of years, and those are some of the best moments of my life, actually. But unfortunately, it didn't work out, and then I started writing music on my own, and I tried to pitch it. But I mean, I didn't know anyone in the industry. I had no idea how to even go about doing that. So things got really tough, and then I decided to just sort of pack up my bags and leave, and just get a fresh start in somewhere completely different. And yeah, you know.
Hmm. But yeah, like it's crazy because you're just so good in this space where it's sort of like it was almost as if it were sort of meant to happen. And maybe even like going back even further, where you're like listening to your mom's like Korean music and like all these records that she was putting on in the house. Like, I don't know, maybe for some reason it just all came together, which is like super crazy to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
um
Yeah, there is something sort of um, like something spiritual about it. You know, I
mm,
wouldn't say it's just luck, but like, yeah, I definitely think there was sort of like a divine intervention in some sort of way.
that's so awesome. So, as I understand it too, and I actually remember this, but you weren't after K-pop Star 2. You had also um, released some of your own music as a solo
Mhm.
artist, um, which was amazing. Like, I remember you released it, and I thought the songs that you put out were super cool, super awesome. But then you decided to, after that, focus more on writing for other
Mhm.
people, writing for companies. Yeah, I'm wondering like the process of writing for these companies,
Mhm.
artists. Like, how different is it? How different does it feel than writing and making music for yourself? Like, are there different frameworks, different mechanics that you might be able to talk about?
Um, it's very different than writing for myself. Well, I haven't written for myself in a very, very long time. In over 13 years now. But I remember when I got started, it was very difficult for me to sort of get into that space because I was so used to, like, writing for myself. And the type of music I wrote, wasn't like, the aggressive, like hard hitting stuff. I grew up listening to like classic R&B, you know, like Boys to Men, Bright McKnight, like Mariah Carey. That's the kind of stuff I love. Um, and of course there's space for that kind of music in K-pop, which is wonderful even today. Um, but the stuff that really sell are songs for like boy bands and girl groups, and like they're like really out there, extremely aggressive, hard hitting. Um, So yeah, I had to listen to a lot of K-pop music, a lot of it, and it took me years to get used to it, to sort of understand what's going on. But also, it's different from like label to label too. You know, I was working very closely with SM, and SM has its own own sound, right? Um, and you know, other labels like YG, they have their own sound too. So just trying to get a better understanding of what SM as a label wanted for their artists was extremely difficult. And I always feel like I'm always like 5 steps behind because it was, especially in the beginning, it was such a headache trying to, you know, craft songs that, you know, I thought they might like. And then finally, when I started to think that I was getting it, it changes, right? Because sooner or later, these labels, they're going to move on from that sound and like evolve as well. So that's sort of the challenge, I think, in being a producer in this industry is that like, yeah, you have to keep learning, but then once you feel like you're getting it, if something else comes in, you got to learn all over
Mm.
again. And yeah, that's difficult, but at the same time, that's what makes it so much fun, I think.
Yeah. So I guess in that way, it's more of a learning of trends and trying to deliver something that matches a particular sound that like a label is going
Hmm.
for at the time. Um, whereas I can imagine like trying to solve that puzzle could be very like frustrating at
Hmm.
sometimes and like very mechanical in a
Yeah.
way. So it is like writing music for yourself where it's more like, okay, I'm living my life and sort of downloading all of these experiences and trying to like transfer and translate that into song in expressing my heart or my deepest darkest
Hmm.
experiences or whatever. Like um does that play a part in it? Like, do you ever think about writing for another group, or like where it comes more from you, your emotional core, or is it more just like, okay, here's a beat, I'm playing around with melodies till it sounds like like what the labels are looking
Hmm.
for pretty much?
Um, well, I mean, fortunately for me, when I got to a point in my career where like I felt sort of like secure and like relevant as a songwriter, I felt I had more of a freedom to just sort of write the stuff that I really feel good about. Um, and I don't know if this is something that I would suggest to anyone, but a lot of the times, so we get leads from labels, right? Like just about like twice a month. And, you know, it's just chock full of all of these like new albums that are coming out and information about the album and what kind of songs they're looking for and references to those songs. All these like, you know, like hundreds of like YouTube links that you could check out. Um, and yeah, I used to read them thoroughly, especially in the beginning, and really, really work hard towards like making a song that, you know, is well crafted to what the label wanted. But it got to a point where I felt really comfortable, just like, hey, you know what? Like some of these references or some of these leads, like they kind of go outside the bounds of my personality and like what I feel like my strengths are. So like sometimes I ask for tracks that are completely unrelated, and I have a lot more fun writing over stuff like that. And the songs seem to come out better. And what's really interesting is that a lot of these songs actually got cut, you know? And so I have this like theory, I could be wrong about it, but you know, I'm imagining they send these leads out to like hundreds of songwriters, right? And they're all writing a song based on that brief, right? And I'm sure most of the songs that are being sent in are like singles, right? And so they're listening to a bunch of songs that sound the same. You know, these A&Rs, they're literally in this room and they're listening to hundreds and hundreds of songs. So no matter how good a song is, I think by the time you listen to like the 20th song, and they're pretty similar, doesn't matter how good they are, they start sounding the same. But then all of a sudden, you hear a song that's completely outside of the scope of their briefs, and I feel like that may, sort of catch their attention a little bit more. And yeah,
Mm,
so I think that might be part of the reason why some of these songs have gotten cut. So I think it's good every once in a while to sort of stray from these briefs and just do what you want. You'd be surprised.
mm, really cool. Um, so you spend a lot of time putting together and participating in song
Hmm.
camps. What is a song camp, and why are these the prominent way of building music catalogs for record labels in Asia?
Um, well, song camps are usually organized by labels. So they become sort of like their top priority. So it's a lot better than just sending a song in, right? Because you have no idea once you do whether that song will get heard that week or months from now. Because, I mean, they're receiving, once again, thousands and thousands of songs per week. So you're never guaranteed to have your song like heard, really. Um, but when a label organizes a song camp, they pay really close attention to it. And of course, when they organize these song camps, um, they're inviting songwriters that they trust, that have a reputation, and so they're expecting some really really good songs to come out of it. So yeah, they place a lot of focus on these song camps, and you have a much better chance of getting a cut.
Hmm. So, how are the song camps usually structured? I mean, is it just like a gang of songwriters
Mm.
all in one room making music, or how does it work?
Yeah, so usually song camps go from like a week to 2 weeks, and it's extremely intensive. You're banging out a song or two or three a day, but at least a song a day. And a lot of times before you attend these sessions, you have no idea really who you're going to be sessioning with until like maybe like a week before. And so it's a little bit exciting. Like you get teamed up with new songwriters all the time, and yeah, it's interesting to see if you have any chemistry with that person or not. I mean, I've had a lot of great sessions, but also I've had a lot of bad sessions. Not because like anyone was like rude or anything like that, or difficult to work with. It's because just sometimes you don't click with that person, or it's not a good day for you. Um,
Hmm.
but that's also what makes song camps really interesting and fun. And it's it also kind of forces you to step outside your comfort zone and try different things. Like um, sometimes I work with songwriters where they have a completely different idea of where they want to go with the song. And initially I'm just like, I don't know if that's going to work, you know but then you're just like, well, I mean, this is why you're here, so you give it a try, and then at the end of it you're like, wow, like I'm so glad I worked with this person. Like I would have never been able to come up
Hmm.
with ideas like this alone. Yeah.
Hmm. Awesome. Wow. I mean, what an amazing experience um, to just be a part of something like
Mm.
that, where number one, it's arranged by the labels. Number two, you have a higher percentage chance of getting your song put on an album for the like on the label's release schedule. Um, for anybody out there looking to get invited to one of those things? Like, how does that happen? I mean, do these invites get sent out based off of your like list of album credits that you've had previously before, or how does it
I
work?
think that's usually the case. Like if you have a reputation in the music industry, and people know your name, then yeah, chances are higher that they might invite you. Um, but it's also like who you know. I've worked with a lot of songwriters who just got into the industry, you know, but still, it comes down to like a proper demo, you know. Um, Otherwise they would have never been invited in the first place. So these new songwriters, they had that one song or this one demo that the A&Rs listened to, and they're like, wow, this songwriter has an incredible voice, so the production is great. Um, and yeah, they they invite them to these song camps, and like a lot of them have been able to start a lucrative career in the K-pop industry.
Sweet. So after all this time making songs, that has also led you to a career in music publishing,
Mhm.
where you're now sort of helping other songwriters um, with their careers. What exactly do you do in that role, and like how's it that you help um, songwriters and producers with publishing?
um, well, the publishing company that I had, I feel like it wasn't just a publishing company, it was also a production company. So it was a lot of trial and error. Like when I first stepped into it, I knew very little about the business. So I needed a lot of help. So fortunately, uh, there are people, uh, well, the publisher that I was formerly signed to, the guy in the manager position, he is someone that I've known for a very long time, and he sort of guided me through the process. And so any questions that I had, I could just simply reach out to him and ask him. So um, so I learned a lot from him, but also when it came to like in accounting and doing all the paperwork and stuff like that, that personally isn't something that I wanted to focus on. I still wanted to be able to create music, just be creative. Um, so the team members that we had, I focused most of my energy into sort of nurturing their talent. And fortunately, I had an incredible A&R where, she took care of most of the things that I didn't want to deal with in the background. Um, so yeah, fortunately, it worked out.
Hmm. Um, cool. So is that like a natural extension if you're a songwriter or producer, like, and just say like I've done pretty well in that field, like should that be something that up and coming songwriters and producers should look into, is like the music publishing space
Mhm.
for um yeah, like for their careers, or
Yeah, I think it's extremely beneficial. But of course, you have to know you have to know which publisher you're signing with, because there are good ones and there are some bad ones. But you're looking for a publisher that pitches your songs aggressively, right? And opens up new opportunities for you, right? Gets you invited into song camps and things like that. That's what a good publisher does. And of course, they have to be honest, with the paperwork and everything like that. So yeah, I think it's in the songwriter's benefit to sign with a publisher, especially if you don't want to deal with the numbers. You want to focus on just creating music. It's definitely an advantage to you to sign with
mm,
one of them.
cool. I guess transitioning to a few more main questions, and then I'm wondering if you'd be okay with participating in our rapid fire round.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Um, in your opinion, have you made the perfect song yet? If not, how do you imagine that song would sound?
I don't think I've written the perfect song yet, and I don't know if I ever will. Um, there are songs where I think, wow, like this is a really good song, and I'm so glad to have been a part of it, or I'm so glad that I wrote it. But there's always like, at the end of the day, there's always like, you listen to the song and you're like, oh, I think this part could have been better, you know. Um, I think we could have changed like little things here and there. So yeah, I'm still working towards it. I'm hoping that one day I could write something. I'll be like, yo, this is it.
This is the one that I've been waiting for. What is a technical tip you can pass on to other music creators to help make their music sound better?
Oof, to help make your music sound better, just keep writing. I think it's all about discipline. I've talked to so many aspiring producers where like they send me songs or they send me tracks, right? And a lot of the times they're just like snippets, right? Or like ideas, and they're good ideas, right? But you got to learn to finish it, you know. That was also one of my problems uh, before I was able to do this professionally. Is that like I would start something and then like I would become, you know, uh, demotivated, and I would tell myself that I'm just gonna put this aside for a while and come back to it, and you don't really do that, you know, and then you get lost in other things, life just happens. So I really think digging your heels in, just sitting there and doing the work and finishing the song, even if it's not the best song you've ever written, or even if you hate it, just complete it and move on to the next. I think as long as you're putting stuff out there or you're putting yourself out there, you have a much higher chance of getting noticed by someone.
Hmm. Wow, that's great. That's a great piece of advice that I think that will go a long way. Is there something like a something that you need to keep inside your mind and continue to tell yourself to finish that song? Like, is there a secret to it,
Mm,
or is it just sort of like I just got to do this, or like what is that like? Because yeah.
I think just some things, there's no magical formula to it. You just have to white knuckle through it. Really.
Hmm.
It's the same thing as breaking a habit. It is a habit, right? Giving up on something before you finish it. And in order for you to break that habit, I mean, you just got to push through, you know? Um, and sometimes I think you have to immerse yourself in a community of songwriters to keep each other motivated.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, I think trying to do this whole music thing by yourself is extremely difficult, you know? But if you have at least one person there who's pushing you, you know, to the point where you might like hate that person a little bit, know, that could be the best thing anyone has ever done for you. Um, and that also reminds me, like, there were people in my life, you know, that like actually got upset with me, when I wouldn't finish a song. Or, if I took like this
mm,
long hiatus from like writing music, a lot of people would like, they would encourage me with kind words, and some people that were really harsh. But like looking back
mm.
on it, I'm really thankful that these people were in my life.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you, at different stages of your career, like thought about
Hmm.
quitting. Was it those types of people that pulled you out of uh, that state,
Oh yeah.
or
For sure.
yeah?
Some of Sometimes it was pressure, you know, like I said, being brutally honest and just calling me out. And but most of the time, I had just really supportive friends where they would tell me, it's such a waste, what you have. You should keep doing it. And yeah, I think things would have turned out a lot differently if those people weren't around. So
Hmm, that's so good. Um, is there any other type of advice, like non-technical, maybe more like life advice, you might be able to give to up and coming music creators
Mm.
trying to be the next Andrew Choi?
Um, Before you step into the studio, you have to leave your ego outside the door, I think. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a songwriter or an artist or anyone that creates, right? People who are creative have the biggest egos, you know? We want acknowledgement for the things that we make, the things that we share with the rest of the world, right? And especially when you're collaborating with people, like it's a competition of egos, right? But uh, I remember a friend saying to me that the song is king. So if you think about it like that, then your ego doesn't matter anymore, right? Yeah, you might not have the best day, and you might not be able to contribute as much as you would have liked. Um, but then when you think about that the song is king, your ego doesn't really get in the way of what you're doing anymore. You don't become so sensitive about someone disagreeing with your ideas or you not being able to contribute as much. If you just focus on making the song the best that it could be, even if not all of it are your ideas, then I think it'll make your work as a songwriter a lot more easier.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's great. And um, a lot of that is probably learned along the way, especially if you're like a young up and comer,
Oh yeah.
wanting to like be front and center all the time and getting praise. And yeah, maybe that might have been you at some point too, where it's like somebody else's idea kind of like starts to shine in like um at some point you're so like if you're serving music, then sometimes being that team player and taking a step back and letting the other guy hit the jump
Mhm.
shots or take the shots um, is almost part of the job,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Right on. Well, thank you again for your service to music all these years, and just those little gems. I think if anybody was to hear that, who might be struggling with ego in certain situations and wondering why, like, oh man, like I'm not getting called into sessions anymore or something like that. Like maybe that's something that they need to hear.
Mm.
But man, thank you again for taking the time out and letting us, yeah, just sharing your journey with us. Um, Sort of the last thing we like to do on the Sonically podcast is the rapid fire round, and we just these questions don't go as deep.
Mhm.
They're more just questions to allow us to get to know you a little bit better. And then after that, we'll just close out the show and say our goodbyes.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So rapid fire round. Question number one: what DAW do you use and why?
Uh, Cubase, and just because that's the first thing I started with.
Nice. Favorite plugins.
Valhalla,
What is a sound that always brings you joy?
a room full of people singing in unison.
Wow. How would you rank your music creator skill sets out of 10 for the following?
Oh,
Beat making,
zero.
lyric writing,
Six. Uh,
sound design,
Five.
mixing,
One.
top lining,
Uh, Seven. Hopefully.
7. Wow, humble. Music theory,
One.
Arranging.
Five.
Very humble. Well, I guess goes to show everyone like you don't have to have tens to have a world class music career. Uh, if Andrew can do it, so can you. What is your facial? What is your reaction or facial expression when you know you made some heat?
Ooh. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
The ugly.
What is
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's that
Yeah.
stank
Yeah.
face right there. What is the secret to staying relevant?
Um, just keep enjoying music. No matter what new music is out there, even if you can't relate to it, try to find a way to relate to it.
Beautiful. What do you think will be the next technology that will impact the future of music creators?
AIs that make music from scratch.
A lot of people saying AI these
Mm,
days, and yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm I'm on that train
yeah.
too. What's next for Andrew Choi? Anything you want to promote?
Um, we are in the middle of developing new company. It's a different publishing slash production company, so we're looking for new songwriters. So yeah, I don't know how I could submit any information. Maybe I don't know. You might have some information uh, along with this video, but like yeah,
Hmm.
I will give you the email where you can submit your songs if you're interested.
Hmm. So cool. Is there a name to the company?
No, not yet. We'll have it
Not
soon.
yet. Okay, well, let us know, and when we release this episode, we'll include all that info
Awesome.
so that people can send in their demos. Look at that, guys. Sonically is setting up opportunities for you guys to win. So let's go. Finally, the last question. How would you define the word sonically?
um, Sounds that have appeal, sounds that evoke emotion and remain with you long after you hear it, I guess.
Nice. I like
Yeah.
it. Cool, man. Well, Andrew, it's always a pleasure to meet up with you and catch up with you. And the fact that we're doing it in podcast form is pretty cool. We've never done this before. And I, yeah, hopefully the questions weren't too
Oh,
hard.
they were
And,
hard.
um, but yeah, thank you again for doing this because I know you don't do this type of thing all the time. And yeah, it just means a lot to me and the community
Oh, thank you for
that
having me.
you're here to share. And we wish you all the best, many blessings in your future
Thank
pursuits. And yeah, I'm sure God has continuous big plans for you. So we can't wait to see how everything unfolds in your life.
Thanks so much, Emma. It was great talking to
No
you. Yeah.
worries. You too.
Peace.
Peace.